nonetheless, Geno talked about Caitlin Clark again and sort of gave some backhanded compliments. Like, he talked about how she connects to the audience, which was good. He talked about how she's tough, like Paige Beckers. He threw Paige in there.
Geno Auriemma just couldn't help himself. Once again, Caitlin Clark became the topic of his conversation. But this time, it wasn't pure praise. Instead, it was a strange cocktail of compliments mixed with subtle jabs that left fans stunned. He began by admitting that Clark connects with audiences like no other player. Yet, almost immediately, he undercut her shine by dragging Paige Beckers into the conversation, as if to remind everyone that he still controls the narrative of comparison. But here's the irony: this is the very same Geno who once dismissed Caitlin Clark outright, claiming she lacked the skill set to dominate at the highest level. Fast forward, and Clark has turned Iowa into a basketball empire while Geno is left watching from the sidelines, losing millions, losing credibility, and watching history unfold without him. Now, every backhanded remark he throws only makes one thing clearer: Caitlin Clark isn't just rewriting the game, she's living rent-free inside Geno's head. And the truth is, he simply can't stand it.
Going out of his way to, first he's like saying she connects to people, and he could have left it at that, I guess. But he almost goes on to put the, reverse some of that discourse, try to put it in others' laps because of Caitlin Clark.
After turning down Caitlin Clark, Geno Auriemma, the legendary UConn coach who built his empire on recruiting dominance, now looks like a man desperately trying to rewrite his own legacy. Once dismissing Clark as a player without the skill set to thrive in the WNBA, he's been forced to watch her transform Iowa into a national powerhouse. She filled arenas, shattered ratings records, and completely shifted the conversation around women's basketball. In the process, Geno was left with more than just regret. He lost money, respect, and the once-in-a-lifetime chance to link his name to the most marketable star of this generation. And instead of owning that mistake, Geno now sits on podcasts, offering half-hearted compliments laced with subtle jabs, trying to spin the story as if it was all part of some bigger plan. But fans aren't fooled. They see exactly what's happening: a legendary coach who underestimated a superstar and is now paying the price for it.
Kid, she's fearless. She just plays. She just is like a little kid in a driveway playing with her friends. So yeah, she's unique in that way. But in terms of what she's doing, people have short memory. Yeah.
On a recent podcast, Geno Auriemma doubled down, firing off remarks that felt less like thoughtful analysis and more like cheap digs. He started by pointing out the obvious, that Caitlin Clark connects with fans everywhere she goes. But almost instantly, he undercut that praise by labeling her trash talk as a problem, as if competitive fire hasn't always been a core part of basketball greatness. Instead of simply giving Clark the credit she deserves, Geno twisted the narrative. He framed the backlash she faces from WNBA players as something she brought on herself, completely ignoring the truth that Clark's swagger and confidence are exactly what make her a generational star. And here's the kicker: while Geno tries to steer the conversation, Caitlin Clark keeps rewriting the game in real time. She's breaking barriers, shattering expectations, and proving every one of his criticisms wrong right in front of the entire basketball world.
Here's the beginning of the conversation.
The women's game. So if I think sometimes people get confused over the last 18 months, maybe over 2 years, that they think it was a rocket, that you all jumped on Caitlin Clark's back and went straight up. But you've been there at the beginning of the run.
The real kicker is that Caitlin Clark isn't just winning games, she's rewriting history while living rent-free in Geno Auriemma's head. Every time he tries to downplay her rise, Clark steps on the court and proves him wrong all over again. What makes it sting even more is that Geno's miscalculation didn't just cost him a player, it cost him millions in ticket sales, television deals, and brand credibility. What could have been the ultimate "I coached her" brag of his career has instead become a constant reminder that he underestimated the wrong player. Now, as Clark continues to elevate Iowa into a national phenomenon, Geno's legacy takes hit after hit. Fans see the bitterness overshadowing his wisdom, and the more he talks, the clearer it becomes. He didn't just miss out on history, he missed out on the future of basketball.
Then we send them up to the WNBA, and then they have something good to work with, and it just keeps growing and growing and growing. So it still comes back to those of us that are in charge of the game, are we making the game better every day?
When pressed further, Geno Auriemma tried to soften his stance, admitting that Caitlin Clark is fearless, likening her to a kid in the driveway just playing for fun. But even that felt more like a backhanded swipe than genuine praise. Instead of celebrating her unique mindset, he quickly pivoted to remind everyone that he's seen greatness before, as if to suggest Clark isn't really doing anything new. But here's the reality. While so many players hesitate, overthink, or shy away from the spotlight, Caitlin Clark runs straight into it. She embraces the pressure, takes the big shots, and thrives under the kind of scrutiny that crushes most athletes. That fearlessness is exactly what sets her apart from the pack, and yet, Geno still couldn't bring himself to crown her greatness outright, because doing so would mean admitting the harsh truth. The very player he once dismissed is now the face of the game he spent decades claiming to define.
Geno Auriemma could be the reason why Caitlin Clark is definitely not joining the unrivaled 3-on-3 basketball league. We front on the pack it all.
Geno Auriemma just couldn't resist dragging Paige Buchers into the conversation, slipping her name in as if to remind everyone that his star still shines just as bright. But the truth is this: while Paige is an incredible player in her own right, bringing her up alongside Caitlin Clark wasn't about respect. It was about deflection. A way for Geno to avoid admitting that he completely underestimated Clark's worth, and that's the fatal mistake. Because Clark isn't just another talented guard, she's something entirely different. Fearless. Unapologetic. Unshaken by pressure. The kind of athlete who doesn't flinch at criticism, doesn't play scared, and doesn't fold under the spotlight. Every time Geno tries to put her in the same box as someone else, it only makes him look like a man scrambling to control a narrative that's already slipped away. When pressed directly about Caitlin Clark's impact on the sport, Geno downplayed it again. He brushed her rise off as just part of the game's natural evolution, tossing out lines about how he's seen it all before and how greatness isn't new. But that's exactly the problem. Because Caitlin Clark isn't business as usual, she's a once-in-a-generation phenomenon whose influence has pulled millions of new eyes onto women's basketball. By refusing to give her full credit, Geno doesn't just look dismissive, he looks bitter. Like a man clinging to past accomplishments while the future unfolds right in front of him, led by the very player he once said wasn't good enough. His biggest blunder came when he tried to rope Clark into his shiny new 3-on-3 league, a project hyped with big investors, bold promises, and a January launch meant to change the game. But Clark wanted no part of it. She flat out refused to align with the same man who had publicly doubted her. That rejection sent shockwaves, because everyone instantly knew what it meant. Without Caitlin Clark, the league had no face, no star power, and no magnet to draw in viewers. What could have been Geno's next big legacy project instead looked like a sinking ship before it even left the dock. Fans didn't hold back either. Social media lit up with brutal jokes, clowning Geno for ever thinking Clark would play under his banner. People reminded him of the times he dismissed her on national television, called her fanbase delusional, and insisted she wasn't tough enough for the WNBA. Now, those very words haunt him. Because Clark doesn't need his league, doesn't need his approval, and doesn't need to boost the reputation of a man who tried to minimize her greatness. Instead of watching her elevate his project into a cultural moment, Geno is left with empty seats, fading hype, and a reputation crumbling as fast as the league he thought would secure his legacy. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark keeps dominating, breaking records, inspiring fans, and proving that his criticisms were nothing more than desperate noise from a coach who lost the biggest bet of his career. At the end of the day, Geno Auriemma thought he could control the narrative. But the truth is simple: he underestimated Caitlin Clark. And that mistake has cost him everything. While he tries to rewrite history with half-hearted compliments and excuses, Clark is rewriting the future of basketball with every game she plays. And the more Geno talks, the more obvious it becomes he isn't just battling Clark's success. He's battling his own regret, because instead of embracing the biggest star of a generation, he pushed her away. And now he's forced to watch from the sidelines as Caitlin Clark takes the sport to heights he'll never reach, proving once and for all that his era is fading, while hers is only just beginning.